Okay, let's adjust this. Grace and peace. This is Apostle Cheryl Richardson here. We are here with our weekly broadcast, Shatter the Silence. We are going to be talking about a very interesting topic today. Hey, Ree, I'm going to take a few minutes to let folk come in. Hey, Michael Cunningham, my dear friend, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to ask you all to share. I'm proud of myself for remembering to even say that. I want to go ahead and tag some folk. Hey, Kelly. I want to go ahead and tag some people. You feel free to, let's see. Feel free to share. I'm going to send out some invitations for people to watch so that they can share it even later. And so that they have a notification that we are in fact live. I pray that you've had a restful, restorative weekend. And if it hasn't been, that you're able to catch some rest this evening before you jump back into your week. Most of us are incredibly busy. And so I appreciate you taking the time to tune in and to see what we're going to talk about on today. It's going to take all of us working together intentionally. Not randomly, not haphazardly, not when it crosses our mind from time to time, but we need to be intentional about the things that are kind of running rampant in society and that are holding us hostage and minimizing who we are in God and minimizing our potential and making laughing stock potentially of our destiny. It's so very important that we all join together around these things, and especially in church, we've come up in a climate where it's almost considered sacrilegious to speak about certain things, and our reluctance to speak about these things openly, and our reluctance to address them and to acknowledge that they are in fact an issue, even within the Lord's church, is what has allowed the enemy to gain the foothold that he has. But we know that in the end that he loses. What does that look like? That looks like us coming together, right? Acknowledging our shortcomings. It's okay to be embarrassed about them. It's okay to be ashamed of, how far we've fallen from what God intended. But it's important that we not stay there long and that we get up and do something about it. Amen. So that's what this ministry is about. And we know that it's going to take all of us to do it. And this has nothing to do with your political party affiliation. It has nothing to do with the faith that you ascribe to or the fact that you don't believe that there is a God. Domestic violence, family violence is something that has really impacted every single one of us across denominational lines, across socioeconomic lines. It does not matter what pedigree you are or what your title is in the church or how amazing you are in your career and how many people love you at work. It doesn't matter. None of us are immune, and all of us have been impacted. If only because we know someone who has. And so we know that domestic violence is incredibly prevalent. We know that it's incredibly prevalent globally. There's my cousin. Hey, Vanessa. Love you. Katie. I know I haven't seen you in forever, but I've not forgotten you. Hey, Joseph. Thanks for tuning in. Please share. So people have told me that I'm relentless about this and that I'm really passionate about it. And the thing is, this is what mantle God has given us in this season. And so whatever assignment he gives us, we embrace it wholeheartedly and all that accompanies it. This is not by any means a popular message. This is not something that people, even church folk, want to talk about, want to hear about. They say things like, listen, that's so ugly. I can't bear to think about it. I can't bear. And this is how we got here. We got here because nobody could bear to address it. We got here because it was so shocking and it was so appalling to hear these stories that we have, on a very large scale, elected to not talk about it, to shame those who do, to ostracize those who do, to be mean sometimes to people who are even ensnared in it, because of our own fears. Now, what I've learned from my military career, what I've learned from what I've experienced growing up, and what I've learned regarding spiritual warfare and deliverance and all of that in all of my years in ministry. I am an apostle in the Lord's church. I am a prophet. And long before I knew what it was, I mean, I've been a prophet for as long as I can remember. I just didn't know what to call it. Okay, I didn't know what it was. I used to trip my family out because I knew stuff, right? But what God has taught me through the path that I've taken in life is that we have to be strategic and that we have to have balance. Hey, Philly. And we have to have balance. We have got to have balance when we're addressing any issue or any problem. Too far leaning in one direction or the other is not okay. I mean, God is a God of balance, okay? He's not an extremist. He's a God of balance. And he's a God of justice. And so we have suffered, even within the church, worldwide, for an extended period of time because we refuse to take the bull by the horns. We refuse to address these issues. And so today we're going to talk about, I've never heard anybody talk about this, right? So I got excited when God dropped it in my spirit. I'm like, that's a good question. And so I started researching. So our topic today is when both partners are abusive, right? When both partners are abusive, who is the core aggressor? When both partners are abusive, who is the core aggressor, right? So now, in this talk today, in this discussion today, and feel free to chime in, state your opinion, comment, feedback, whatever. Discourse is what we need in order to get a handle on this, okay? Because this is some foolery from the pit of hell. God does not ordain it, and he's not okay with it, okay? So anything that he's not okay with, he's given us the authority to address in the earth. He's given us the authority and he's given us the power, but we have to avail ourselves of it. We have to access it. We have to understand it, right? And we have to understand how to utilize this authority that he's given us, okay? There's no expectation from on high that we just go along with being mistreated. Any of us, okay? Why? Why do you say that? I'm glad you asked. I say this because he died for every single one of us, right? So he doesn't want any of us to be maltreated. That's why, okay? So when both partners are abusive, who is the core aggressor? Apostle Marquita, thanks for joining. When both partners are abusive, who is the core aggressor? Think about every time you hear anyone talk about domestic violence. Number one, there's a few things that just pop to mind automatically, right? Oh my gosh, that's awful is usually one of them. Okay, that's terrible. Oh my God. Okay, and then why don't she leave is another thing that comes up quite often. Why don't they just leave? Okay, and so we've addressed these things in previous discussions. But people don't spend a whole lot of time looking at the fact that typically over a period of time, because this is what fuels the cycle, there's participation from both parties with abusive behaviors. Okay, now, for those of you who are wondering where this is coming from, I'm a career mental health professional. Okay, there's not too many things in mental health I've not done over the 30 plus years that I've been a mental health professional. And I've done it with just about every population that you can name. And I've done it all over the country. Those of you who have known me for years knows how God uses me. He moves me from place to place to establish programs, to clean up programs, to open brand new programs. And then he moves me on. Right? That's what he's done my entire life. And so all of that's starting to make sense to me now, right? Before it was like, why are you doing this? Where are we going? Okay. So what I've noticed though, when we talk about domestic violence is people tend to, number one, assume that the abuser is the male, right? There's an assumption that the male partner is the abusive partner. Now, there are reasons that people make this assumption. This assumption is made because it's more frequently reported by women that they are being abused. And women horribly underreport abuse. Even those who file a report may not file a report every single time it happens. They might file one here and there. So even when there are calls made, 9 times out of 10, there's a whole lot of calls that weren't made, even by the woman who did make a call. Okay? Now, men oftentimes won't report it at all. They won't. For cultural reasons, they're worried about getting their man card withdrawn. People don't understand. They get ridiculed. There's no real support for them. There's a shortage of shelters for men, especially like fathers with children. It's difficult for them to find placement if they do leave. They're ostracized by friends if they do. And so men have a difficult time reporting when they're being abused, and they often have a difficult time even recognizing that is what's happening. Okay, so for lots of reasons, which we've touched on in other broadcasts. So you can do a search and find our lives, because we've talked about 18 or 19 completely different topics since the Lord has started us on this journey. So, but what you don't hear is focus on when both partners become abusive, whether that's verbally, whether that's financially, whether it's physically. The focus is typically on the woman being the victim, right? And the man being the abuser. So, I submit to you that it can be the other way around, that it can be the woman being the abuser and the man being the victim. And I submit to you that anyone can be a victim, anyone at all, and anyone at all can be an abuser. Your career choice does not protect you from this. Your pedigree, your financial status, your status in the community, the fact that everybody loves you outside your home, none of that makes any difference to an abusive person. They're concerned about getting their supply. They're concerned about getting their needs met. And that is all that matters. That's all that matters. Nothing else matters, okay? Now, why are people abusive? They're not abusive because of financial problems. They're not abusive because they have a drinking problem. They're not abusive because they're a crack addict. They're not abusive because they're addicted to opioids. They're abusive because they choose to be abusive. Now, these things that I just named exacerbated, and what happens is these things provide an excuse for the behavior that both the abuser and the victim and the audience accepts. And so when we start pinning this on these other things, then these other things become the issue, and not the fact that an abusive person is choosing to exert power and control over another human being. Okay? All right. Now, what was our question? When both partners are abusive, who is the core aggressor? I've said before that anyone who finds themselves in an abusive situation, there's a point at which it was apparent and it was dismissed. Because if that weren't the case, then you would just leave, right? It'd be like, you're not going to speak to me that way, and that would just be the end of it. But that's not what we tend to do, okay? For various reasons. Religious reasons, cultural reasons, old wives' tales, misplaced sense of loyalty. A victim will stay and stay and stay. Now, I'm going to put my clinical hat on for a moment. This is what I know as a clinician, as a mental health professional. The longer you stay in an abusive environment, the sicker you become. So you've got 2 sick people in a relationship, not 1 sick person. There are 2 sick individuals involved in this thing. And it takes 2 sick individuals to keep it going, okay? So, are you saying that the victim is sick? I'm absolutely saying that the victim is sick. And the longer the victim stays in this environment, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter what the reason is that a victim doesn't leave. The longer you stay, the sicker you become. Okay. So, when both partners are abusive, who's the core aggressor? You may hear the term during this discussion, core aggressor. You may hear me say predominant aggressor. You may hear me say primary aggressor. They are all the same thing. They're interchangeable. Core aggressor, predominant aggressor, primary aggressor. Now, what I want to look at first is this. Wait, before I even go there, it's like I hear somebody thinking this. So let me address this. Listen, I'm not saying if he punches you in the face, you're just supposed to stand there and smile at him. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you reach a point in this abuse cycle where there's a response to the overt aggression. There is a response on some level, okay? And so what we're looking at is who is the core aggressor. It's not always the man. It's not always the police come out because two parties are having a domestic dispute, and maybe the man punched the woman in the face. That does not mean, all right, that something crazy didn't happen before that, and that something didn't happen before this call many days ago, a month ago. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So we've got to stop looking at it in a snapshot in terms of a single incident. That's one of the mistakes that we tend to make, okay? So when both partners are abusive, who is the core aggressor? All right? If you stay in it long enough, you'll find yourself acting out of character for you. The victim will find themselves saying things, doing things, thinking things that they normally would not do. And this can cause a hit to your self-esteem, the way you even feel about yourself. Your ability to discern that, I deserve better than this. But if I'm acting just like them, or if they're cursing at me and now I'm cursing back, they raised their voice, so I raised my voice. They said something hurtful, so now I'm saying something hurtful. They talked about my mama, so now I'm going to talk about their children. You know what I'm saying? So you find yourself getting pulled into this negative place, this dark, dark place, and nothing positive can come out of it. And all of this just feeds the cycle. And as I stated previously, then both parties are sick. Both parties are sick. Okay? So, Apostle, are you saying I'm sick? I'm in abuse? Yes, you're sick. If you're in an abusive situation, you are sick also. You are sick also. And the only way you're going to get well is to extricate yourself in a safe manner. Okay? So, core aggressor, predominant aggressor, primary aggressor. I might use those terms. They all mean the same thing. Okay? Now, in my research, I found something. The Advocates for the Human Rights Stop Violence Against Women Project, all right, is the source of what I'm about to tell you. We're going to look at the legal aspect of determining who the core aggressor or primary aggressor or predominant aggressor are. All right? Now, one of the most important things that law enforcement agencies can do is to ensure proper training for officers to accurately determine in the field which party is the predominant aggressor. And that is vitally, vitally important. So, if you're involved in law enforcement, if you are involved in law enforcement training, if you are politically aligned with them, one of the ways that you can help in terms of family violence and domestic violence is to really be a supporter of them receiving proper training about how to determine it, okay? What are they using when they respond to a call? Keeping in mind that they're also in danger, okay, because there's a large percentage of first responders that lose their life responding to these calls, number one. So when they arrive at the scene, they've got that in the back of their mind, that they could very well become a victim themselves because of the dynamic of domestic violence itself. It's not unusual for the victim to then turn on law enforcement. Not unusual at all, okay? So it's important that they're trained properly, right? And one way, like I'm saying, one way that we can be effective is to really support that when we have an opportunity to do so. The International Association of Chiefs of Police, right? All the chiefs of police belong to this. They define the predominant aggressor as, here we go. You all can take notes. Matter of fact, I suggest you take notes because the things that we talk about, although, we are faith-based, we believe in Jesus Christ. He is my best friend, my foundation, and it's in him that I live and move and have my being. Okay, there's no doubt about that. I have no question about that whatsoever. It's important that we get educated and stop being all deep and mystical and understand what we're dealing with while we're here on planet Earth. Yes, in that great day, we're going to all end up with him if we met his criteria, if we live right, and all of that. If we apply the word of God and all of that. But right now, we're here, okay? And he put us here. So we've got to figure out how to do this, right, without harming one another and without damaging one another and without leaving one another ensnared, okay? And that's important. That's our collective assignment while we are here, is to look out for one another, okay? So, according to the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the predominant aggressor is the individual who poses the most serious ongoing threat, which may not necessarily be the initial aggressor in a specific incident. I'm going to read that again. According to the International Association of the Chiefs of Police, the individual who poses the most serious ongoing threat, which may not necessarily be the initial aggressor in a specific incident. That means that if there is a call because I broke a bottle over my partner's head, that does not mean I'm the predominant aggressor. That does not mean I'm the predominant aggressor. Apostle Kevin, grace and peace. Thanks for joining. Because to look at it that way, you're limiting to that particular incident. So there's more that has to be looked at to determine, right, who the primary aggressor, who the predominant aggressor is. It's not limited to what happened in that particular instance. And it's important for us to know that, all right? They also inform law enforcement officers that they are expected to arrest any person who commits a criminal act. Now, let's go back to the example that I gave you. If I break a bottle over my partner's head, okay, that does not mean that I'm the predominant aggressor in the relationship, because that's what I did in that instance. However, I did commit an assault, okay? So the fact that maybe I am not the predominant aggressor in the relationship does not mean that it's okay for me to bust a bottle over somebody's head today, okay? And so it's important for us to understand that as well. So there's more than one thing going on here. There's more than one thing at play here, okay? So they're expected to arrest any person who commits a criminal act of intimate partner violence, unless there is a clear and compelling reason not to arrest, like self-defense determination, a lack of probable cause, okay? After a comprehensive investigation to identify the predominant aggressor. So there needs to be a comprehensive investigation. They are expected to arrest whoever broke a law that day, all right, unless they didn't have any choice but to break a law. Now, if when they arrive at my residence, they see that I've broken a bottle over my partner's head, okay, I have never done that, just to make that, so I haven't done that, okay, so I'm not guilty of that. But let's just say I broke a bottle over my partner's head, right? They come out. They may not arrest me, okay? It doesn't mean I'm the predominant aggressor. Remember, we said that, because it depends on what has happened in the course of the relationship. However, I did break a law. Now, they're expected to arrest me unless they determine it was self-defense. If when they look at me, I've got strangulation marks around my neck, it's clear I had to do something to get that person off of me, right? So if I am seriously injured, or if I have suffered a very egregious assault, then I may not be arrested for breaking a bottle over a person's head, because I wanted to live, and that's not illegal. Okay? Anybody have any questions about that? Any questions? Okay. All right. So we know that they're expected to make an arrest if a law has been broken, unless there's a self-defense determination, right? Or a lack of probable cause. Like, there's no reason for me to do it, because you're saying I broke a bottle over your head and they can't find any broken glass and your head looks fine, and there's no evidence that anything has happened, okay? Now, what are some of the criterion that law enforcement may use to ascertain who the predominant aggressor is? Why am I sharing this? Because the domestic violence cycle, in order to interrupt it, you need outside assistance to do it. It's important to know what they're looking at to determine if you're eligible for assistance, if a crime has been committed, if you are in danger at all, what services to make you knowledgeable of, to make you aware of, okay? So number one of the things that they may very well look for, and which I think they should look for, who uses threats and intimidation in the relationship normally? Who normally is the one that's issuing threats? All right? Who is the one that normally walks in intimidation in the relationship? Number 2, does either individual isolate their partner? This is a coercive control tactic, right? That is often, you can count on isolation being a piece if you have a domestic violence situation. There's some attempt to control the victim's interaction with family, friends, loved ones, co-workers, to determine if there will be an interaction or relationship, to determine to what extent, how many minutes they can talk to them, if they're permitted to even speak to them at all. Okay? So, number 1, who uses threats and intimidation in a relationship? Number 2, does either individual isolate their partner? Number 3, who is emotionally abusive? Maybe uses name calling, humiliation, embarrassing in public. Who uses that? Who does that? Number 4, how are minimalization, blame, and denial being used by the victim and or suspect? So, are either one of them minimizing? Well, he just pushed me and I got a black ring around my eye. Would be a minimalization, okay? Blame or denial. There's nothing wrong here. Everything's fine. We just had a moment. Okay, who's doing that? Okay, so these are the things that they look at to determine who is the predominant aggressor. All right? How are these things being used? And are they who's using them? The supposed victim or the supposed perpetrator? Number 5, who uses the children to get the upper hand? Who is saying things like, I'm going to take the children away. You'll never see them again if you leave me. I'm going to go to the court. I'm going to call, if you're a professional, I'm going to call your licensing board and tell them that, you know, you're an unfit parent. I'm going to accuse you of abuse or molestation of our kids. Who does that in the relationship? Okay. That's using the children to get the upper hand. Number 6, who has forced sexual contact or used sexual acts as a means of controlling the other? So who's using sex as a weapon? Who has weaponized sex in the relationship? Okay. Number 7, who has control of the money or finances or uses them as a way of controlling the other? This might look like, you know, the victim goes out to work, works 40 hours a week, literally hands the paycheck over to the perpetrator, to the abuser, has no say about how that is spent. Maybe it's not even spent in the house. So this is not about the victim not being good at money management. This is just they have no control over their own income. They go to work, they earn a check, they never see a check. Or they're given an allowance from the check. And the household needs are still not being met. Groceries still aren't being purchased. The electric bill still isn't being paid. The water bill still isn't being paid. So we're not talking about a situation where a couple may agree, you know, you're better at managing finances than I am. So here, and it's an agreement not born of coercion, not born of intimidation, not born of control. Okay? That's completely different. All right. Number 8, who utilizes coercion or threats? Okay. Does one partner feel forced or like there's an or else? We're going to do it this way or else. Okay. Is there threats and intimidation being utilized? Who does that? Number 9, have any steps been carried out or steps taken to carry them out? So when threats are made, do they then walk them out? Do they threaten or have they threatened and executed the threats? If you don't bring a whole 40-week check in, I'm taking your car keys. If you don't give me this, if you don't do that, then I'm going to call your boss. I'm going to call the licensing board. Have they done these things or are they talking about doing these things? Okay. And this will let you know how serious things have progressed. If it's gone from threats to them executing with the threats that they've verbalized. Okay. And then number 10. Does either party have a history of committing violent crimes? Now, for all my church people, We want to be real spiritual and talk about how we've all been delivered from something, and God died for all, sent His Son to die for all of us. All of that is true. All of that is true. But delivered means just that. Delivered means I'm not giving you any indication. Truly delivered means you're interacting with me and there is no vestige, there's no residue, there's no remnant, there's no reminder, there's no red flag about who I used to be. If I am truly a new creature, there should be no indication of the joker that I was before I came to Christ. That's it. That's it. So if you see those habits and those tendencies peaking up, there's an issue and there's a problem. Okay? And I submit to you that it's suspect. I would question the quality of their relationship, the depth of their relationship, and if they even have a relationship, if you see indicators of who they've supposed to have been delivered from. God does all things well. He doesn't almost halfway deliver anybody. You're either delivered or you are not. Okay? All right. Now, no, that's not a popular statement. I praise God. I'm not concerned about that. All right. We're still talking about what the International Association of Chief of Police say that officers should look at. So these are the things that they consider when they come out on a call or when they're looking at a case, when they're trying to determine who should be charged with what, if a crime has been committed, has intimate partner violence actually taken place, and who is the predominant, primary, or core aggressor, okay? Who is the predominant, primary, or core aggressor? All right, so number 11, what does the premise history, the address history, right, tell you about calls for service to the residents? How many times have the police been called to that address? How many times have they been called to an address and the parties involved were these two individuals? The frequency of the calls let you know about the seriousness of the situation, because domestic violence we know is underreported, and so there's a real good chance that every single time something happens, even if they've responded many times, they've not been called every time. Okay? So this is something that they look at. Is this an address that we respond to? And this is something that they need to be concerned about for their own safety as first responders. All right? Because ongoing calls is an indication that the abuse is so severe, the threats and intimidations are so intense that the victim is concerned about their life at this point. They continually calling. They're calling, because they understand that they need to call. And that's a difficult place for a victim to find themselves, where they can actually even make that call. All right, so it takes a lot to get them to make a call in the first place. They tend to endure a lot before they even make a call. So if they're making frequent calls and we know that they're not making a call every single time, that's an indicator of how serious things have become. Okay? Hey, Jason. Number 12. Is there a history of intimate partner violence between the parties? Have the police responded to this residence because of these two individuals in the past? Okay? These are all things they think about. So they're thinking about the history and the track record of the relationship, not just what happened just now. All right? If they've been out many times, if there's been injuries to one party over the other every single time, they've got a pretty good idea of who the primary or core aggressor is based on the history, not just that one incident. Okay? Is there a physical size difference between the parties? Now, this one is concerning to me, because although size does play a factor, physical size, the disparity in sizes becomes a little less important if a weapon is introduced. Doesn't matter what size you are. The right weapon will bring you down. Okay, so physical size is important if you're just talking about physical altercation and no other weapons being used. But if a woman is going to attack a man, she's probably going to have something, because to try to level the playing field, right? She's not coming after you with her bare hands most of the time. Okay, most of the time. All right, so they look at the physical size difference, but in my opinion, that depends on where you are in the abuse cycle, how pertinent that even is. Okay, if a weapon has been introduced, that mitigates that somewhat. Okay, Then number 14, does either party have a protection order against them or a history of having one? Have they done this before? Have they done this before? Now listen, last week when we talked about domestic violence and the question was, does it increase over the holidays? And I said, that's really a myth. There aren't any statistics that establish that it increases. That, matter of fact, the calls dropped to almost 50% during a 17-day period around the holidays from right before Thanksgiving till New Year's Day. When you compare any other 17-day period in the year, the calls are 50% less during that week, right? And so there's a myth that it increases, and that is not necessarily the case. But one of the things that I talked about, and I think it's important, and I'm going to try to remember to come back when we're done and post it in this thread, is that there's a site, In Harm's Way, and there's a number that you can text. You text the word SAFE to this number, and I'll post it when we're done. And it will give you access to a site where you can search for a court history, which means before you get all starstruck and fascinated and in love with somebody, visit the site and see, do they have any cases out there? Do they have any cases? Understand that being convicted of something just means that there was enough evidence to prove it. There are many, many times when people aren't even brought up on charges for this behavior. And if they have been brought up, there are times that they weren't even caught, that it wasn't even reported. Because had it been, they would have been stopped before they got to this current victim. So most times when someone finds themselves being a victim, they're not the first victim. Okay, they're not the first victim. They might be the first victim to address it, but they're not the first victim. So what am I saying? I'm saying do your research. It's not very romantic, granted, but it may keep you from getting ensnared in something that could cost you your life. You need to understand who it is you're interacting with. Who are you trusting into your life? Who has your personal information? Who is around your children? Who has met your family and knows where they live? Because you get connected to someone who is not wrapped too tight. Now they know all of this about you. Now they know all of this about you. And it empowers them and it disempowers you. So I am saying, okay, not very subtly, check them out, whoever they are. Male or female, does not matter. Check them out. Okay. So I'm going to post that information. You can check and see if there's any cases out there. You at least need to know if there's been an allegation that they're abusive. Because where did that come from? At least you know what to look for and what to pay attention to. Okay? It's very, 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 very important. There was a case, I believe it was in Ohio, a couple of years ago, where this man killed 4 children. 2 of them his biological children, 2 of them his stepchildren, shot his older stepchildren, one was about to graduate from high school, shot them in the head in front of their mother, whom he had tied up. His name's Gregory Green. Google it. He tied the mother up, shot her in her foot, didn't want to kill her, he wanted her to suffer, shot her children in the head in front of her, right? And asphyxiated his own 2 biological children, little bitty girls, by running a hose from his car to where they were sleeping. And he killed them all. He killed them. Didn't kill his wife, right? But here's the thing that's troubling to me. This was not a young lady who didn't have a relationship with God. My understanding is her father is an apostle in the church, right? This man had just gotten out of prison for murdering his previous wife or girlfriend who was pregnant. The best indicator of what you can expect going forward is what happened back there, okay? And if they are truly delivered, there will be no indication of that, because God does all things well. Hey, Rosalind, God does all things well. So that case is very, very disturbing, because you don't get a bigger red flag than, hey, I'm getting out of prison for killing somebody that was carrying my own child. A person that will do that does not place any value on human life, period. Period. Not even a life that they had participation in developing. Okay? I mean, so when we can find ourselves in situations that with red flags that are that blatant, we need education. We need education. We need to stop sprinkling fairy dust. We need to stop it. Being deep and mystical, okay? And people are getting killed all around us. People are being battered all around us. People are being pulled out of character all around us because they're being abused. And at some point, the police have to come to their house, and the police have to decide which one of these two people who are screaming and yelling right now is the core aggressor. Which one of these two people is the predominant aggressor? Which one of these two people is the primary aggressor? Okay? So we've talked about 13 different things so far. 14. Number 15. Who appears to be more capable of assaulting the other? Who appears to be more capable of assaulting the other? Listen. And this is where really, if you have a relationship with the Lord, if you listen to the Spirit of God, Apostle Rodney, if you listen to him, he will tell you how to conduct yourself, right? Now, I have shared in the past that I've had a childhood that had domestic violence in it, okay? And I've had a relationship that had domestic violence in it as an adult. And I remember God saying to me in the middle of one of these crazy episodes, don't do anything. Because, listen. Now, I saw Jeffrey Taylor on here. He's from Philadelphia like I am. So anybody from Philadelphia understands how we think, right? My thought process was, all that I've been through and all that I've seen and all of that I have experienced and all that I have survived, I think I just might respond to you. Okay, so this is how I know that if you stay in a situation, it will pull you. It will pull you. All that stuff that God has delivered you from will try to come back. It'll try to rise to the surface, okay? But what God said to me was, don't do anything. The hardest thing for me to do in that moment was nothing. You hear me? Nothing. To do nothing? What? Don't do anything? But you know what? Because I did nothing, because I obeyed God and did nothing in that instance, it was clear who the core aggressor was. And so when we allow ourselves to get pulled out of character, when we allow the enemy to resuscitate all this stuff that is supposed to be dead, right, from our past, and we start behaving like who we used to be before we knew who Christ was, when the police arrive, they're looking at who you used to be. They don't know anything about who you're supposed to be today. They know who you're acting like right now, okay? And you act like you could have started this, all right? And so in some states, they'll take both people because they're not even going to try to figure that out. They're not going to try. They're not doing all that. They're going to take, everybody's going to jail, and your attorneys can convince a judge who the core aggressor is, because right now both of y'all are clowning, okay? And so it's important to keep these things in mind. Why are we talking about these things? We're talking about these things so that we can understand what first responders, what police are looking at when they respond to a domestic violence call, how they determine who the core aggressor is, okay? Now, who appears to be more capable? Now, if you're swinging from the light fixtures and cussing and throwing things, right? Come on. It's a given. They're going to give you some zip ties on your wrists, some handcuffs, and you going to jail. That's where you're going. All right? And you might be the victim. But if you're cutting up when they get there, it's not going to look like you're a victim. All right? What is the severity of the injuries to the partner? All right? So that's the other thing that they look at. What is the severity of the injuries? Did either party utilize self-defense? Okay? Was self-defense an issue in this altercation? Is there potential for violence in the future? If so, by whom? Okay, so they've got to look at the situation and make a determination about, will this happen again? And if it does, who's going to probably be the one that initiates it based on what we're seeing here right now? Okay, which party has access to weapons and firearms? Okay, what type of injuries do the parties have? Are there any defensive or offensive wounds? Does either party express fear of the other? All right. Is there evidence from witnesses. Is there anyone who observed the altercation and can say what happened? Okay. Now, both the American Bar Association and the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges have prepared spreadsheets covering the U.S. domestic violence arrest policies, because they're not exactly the same from state to state. So it's important that you're familiar with what the rules are, what the laws are, what the statutes are in your state. The American Bar Association resource covers all 50 states and Washington, D.C., American Samoa, Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, okay? And you can find that at americanbar.org, all right? And it will let you know from state to state what the statutes say. Now, if the predominant aggressor is misidentified, and this is important. This is so important. Now, I can tell you from experience, someone who is a narcissist can present as calm and docile and concerned and perplexed and confused when the police get there. I have seen this, and it was mind-blowing. It's been mind-blowing every time I've witnessed it, right? Because it's enough to make you question what just happened, right? The victim wonders, well, maybe they didn't hit me. Well, maybe they didn't just throw the TV across the room. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe it's my fault. You know what I'm saying? Because they can present. They understand that it's important that when the first responders get there, that they don't appear to be deranged, that they don't appear to be out of control. But now, it's important that they identify the core aggressor properly, and this is why. If the predominant aggressor is misidentified, there could be negative legal consequences, of course, for the victim. If they're viewed to be the perpetrator, they're going to jail when they were the victim, okay? It can result in denial of child custody, right? Because if you've got this conviction or this charge for violence, they're going to remove any children that you have from your care because they're concerned about their safety, right? And you could be the victim, but misidentified as the perpetrator, all right? Housing rights, who can stay in the residence, who needs to leave the residence, all right? Immigration rights, okay? Also, if a victim is not identified as such, they may not be eligible for shelter or aid as mandated by law. And that's important because shelters have criteria that you have to meet in order to enter. I know because I was a homeless shelter director in St. Louis for like 4 years. And there were certain criteria that we had to look at in terms of who is eligible to receive services from us. Okay, they may very well be homeless, but are they eligible to receive services from us regarding the rules that we must follow to admit someone into our shelter? Okay, now, according to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, sometimes it's difficult to determine who may be the core abuser and who may be the primary victim, right? And we can understand how that could be really confusing because they're having to make a decision when they respond based on what is presented to them at the scene, okay? Statistics are very slim, if available at all, okay? And so what we're going to look at next in this discussion are the characteristics of abusers and the characteristics of victims in general, okay? And how violence and abuse may be used to exert control. So, characteristics of abusers. Let's look at those. The main objective, and we've talked about this before, when someone is an abuser, is to dominate and to control the victim. Bottom line. Bottom line. They use various ways. Hey there. They use various ways. They use various coercive control tactics, but an abuser's bottom line, whether they're male or female, is to be dominant and to exercise power and control over the victim. Point blank, period, full stop. That's the end game, okay? They are typically manipulative. We're talking about the abuser. They're manipulative and they're clever. These are not stupid people, okay? These are not stupid people. And a lot of times they're very charismatic, very professional, well put together, know how to have a great conversation, make everyone feel at home and comfortable. And so these are some of their characteristics. And this is what gives them an upper hand, and this is what helps them to isolate their victim, and this is what causes them to bamboozle anyone who may be an onlooker. Okay, their behaviors are cyclical. There's the honeymoon period, and this you can take to the bank. There's the honeymoon period. There's tension building. Then there's an explosion, and then repeat. There is the honeymoon period. There's tension building, and there's an explosion. Repeat. The only thing that may vary is the length of time spent in each of these places, in this cycle, and the amount of time from cycle to cycle. That may vary from relationship to relationship, okay? You can go from the honeymoon period where everything's amazing, and I love you, and here's a diamond, and let's go to dinner, and let's take that vacation, and sure, I'll go out with you and your friends who I can't stand, because I know it's important to you, and I love you so much. So you can go through that period. That may last days. That may last hours. It may last weeks. It may last months. It may last years. Some people report that they don't even start getting abusive behavior until they've been in a relationship for 2 years. Okay? Then there's tension building, where the victim feels like walking on eggshells, like they're walking on broken glass, like their partner has a hair trigger temper, is easily irritated, or feels insecure or snappy, and all of that. And then there's the explosion. Whether that's screaming, yelling, cursing, name calling, breaking things, throwing things, hitting people, right? Making verbal threats, walking around the house with a weapon. You haven't verbally said anything, but you're walking around with a shotgun. What are we to take from that? What does that mean, right? Okay, so the cycle is predictable. It varies in terms of how much time is spent in each phase of the cycle and how much time between cycles. And oftentimes in a relationship, if you track it, the cycle, it gets shorter and shorter and shorter, and more and more and more intense, okay? So we're talking about the characteristics of abusers. Cycles increase in intensity over time, right? And some abusers may cycle rapidly, and others may stretch it out over time. I mean, they can wine you and dine you and buy you the diamonds and the flowers and take you to dinner for a year and a half, 2 years, and then it's like their head spins around and they start spitting out green stuff, okay? So that's not uncommon. The foundational strategy used is coercive control. It includes isolation, degradation, micromanagement, manipulation, stalking, physical abuse, financial abuse, threats, and punishment, all right? They initially present, we're still talking about the abuser, they initially present as charming and successful or full of potential. Now, if they're not already successful, and church folk, listen to me. Please listen to me. Please listen to me. Stop falling for people's potential, what they can be later. Stop that, okay? So they initially present as charming, successful, full of potential, okay? Well-liked, kind, romantic, interested in whatever you're interested in, okay? They share your likes, they share your dislikes. They're just like you. They have your interests and goals in common with you. They're attentive to you as your partner. They're attentive to your friends and family and supportive, okay? Over time, though, these behaviors change and the victim begins to feel isolated and controlled. The partner may even dominate their time. So over time, they're spending less and less time with family, less and less time with friends, less and less time in an environment that is supportive or in an environment that does not include the abuser, okay? Why may a victim use force within an intimate relationship? What do you all think? Why might a victim use force within an intimate relationship? Okay, so violence is not equal in their relationships, even if the victim fights back or instigates violence in an effort to diffuse the situation. All right, sometimes a victim will go ahead and trigger the abuser because they know the abuse is coming. They're familiar with the cycle. They know it's time for an explosion. and they at least want to be in control of when the explosion happens or where it happens. Okay, is that logical? Only if you're a victim. Okay, there is no typical victim. Every single victim is not the same. Okay, so what we're talking about are some things that they have in common, generally speaking. Over time, the victim becomes increasingly oppressed by the abuser, and may do whatever they can to appease their partner. So they will tolerate abusive behavior, they will tolerate disrespectful behavior, they will tolerate physical abuse, financial abuse, stalking. They will do all of that in an attempt to diffuse the situation and to appease their partner, to calm them down. Okay? Also, victims of violence may retaliate and resist domination and battering by using force themselves. So they may decide, listen, I'm going to get you back. Listen, I'm not going to let you keep putting your hands on me. I'm not going to let you keep pushing me, shoving me, choking me, strangling me rather, not choking, because choking is when you take a bite off an apple and it gets lodged in your throat. That's choking. Strangulation is intentional, and it's, I am going to reduce your air supply, and I may even kill you. That's what strangulation is, okay? And there's nothing accidental about strangulation, okay? Choking, the Heimlich maneuver will help. Strangulation is a completely different animal altogether, all right? So sometimes the victim will use force to retaliate because of pent-up frustration, pent-up anger, anticipating more abuse, being familiar with this cycle, and knowing that it's going to escalate, okay? For example, they may use violence to escape and or stop violence that is being used against them. So they may use violence to get away or to mitigate the violence that the abuser is using against them, and to establish a semblance of equivalence in the relationship as a way of protecting themselves and their children against abuse that is escalating. So when a victim sees that abuse is escalating, they may respond in force or in kind in an attempt to send a message. Listen, this is getting out of hand, and I'm not going to allow you to continue to treat me this way. Okay? Are we advocating for that? No, because the cycle continues to ratchet up. So there are other ways to address it, but we're talking about how it can become confusing and difficult to determine who the primary aggressor is. So I'm talking about the characteristics of the abuser and the characteristics in the thought process that the victim may be involved in. Violence on the victim's part is usually seen as resistance to ongoing battery, okay? So that's resistive or reactive violence. I'm being violent as a victim because I'm resisting the violence that's been shown to me, and I am reacting to the violence that has been shown to me. Okay, so the characteristics of resistant or reactive violence are, see why I told you to take notes? The characteristics of resistant or reactive violence. Remember now, the purpose is to resist what's occurring to me, to keep it from escalating, and to send a message that I'm not going to just allow you to continue to treat me this way. So there's a specific target for resistive or reactive violence. We're talking about the victim now. There's a specific target for violence that is reactive or resistive, and that is the abuser. They're not targeting anybody but the abuser, okay? Hey, Pam. Hey, Kenny. They're not targeting anyone but the abuser, okay? Resistive or reactive violence is used to stop and or escape ongoing battering. The victim may see it as a form of self-protection. So the victim views it as, I'm protecting myself. I'm getting physically aggressive now because this abusing person, my partner, is visiting violence upon me. And I need to try to level this playing field somehow. I am protecting myself when I get violent, okay? It's often used by victims to reclaim and restore dignity and integrity that has been destroyed by the abuser through systematic abuse. What does that look like? Maybe it hasn't progressed to physical violence on the part of the core aggressor or the abuser, but the tongue lashings, the disrespect, the threats, the intimidation, the stalking, whatever it is that they're experiencing, the financial abuse, the isolation, all of these coercive control tactics can build to a place where a victim feels like, I've got to do something because this person is going to hurt me. They're going to hurt me, okay? So they're trying to restore their dignity, some sense of integrity, and some sense of their own self-worth and control when they become aggressive. And so this is just drawing you into becoming sick along with the abuser, okay? The motivation behind the use of such force is to retaliate and or resist battery or to stop future violence. I'm trying to send a message to you. You've been sending all these messages to me, and I heard all your messages, and I feel like I need to send a message back so that you understand that I am not going to just go along with this. I'm not going to just go along with this, okay? Targets of resistive violence generally hold the key to their own protection. The targets, now remember, I just said that a person who is utilizing resistive or reactive violence only has one target, and that's the abuser. Only the abuser, because their primary interest is in stopping the abuse, right? And protecting themselves, protecting their children. So the target, the abuser, holds the key in general to their own protection. Stop perpetuating violence upon the victim. You stop abusing the victim, the threat of resistive or reactive violence is diminished because there's no reason. There's no reason. There's no ongoing reason, right? To neutralize anything, to neutralize the situation. So the abuser, who is the core aggressor, who then suffers violence or abusive behavior from their partner, holds the key to their own protection, and that is stop your abusive behavior, okay? Violence is rarely the first or only tactic used by intimate partner violence victims. They often use a lot of other tactics. So when a victim becomes violent, okay, in a situation, we're talking about when both partners are abusive. When a victim becomes abusive, it's typically not the first thing. The physical response is not the first thing. There's a tendency to endure a lot, to go through a lot, to get beat down a lot verbally, to deal with a lot of stalking, a lot of denigrating, a lot of disrespect, before they reach for resistive or reactive violence as a tool or a weapon to use in their relationship. They will use negotiation first. They will use appeasement first. They will use threats to withdraw or they'll actually leave. We know that women on average leave 7 times. Leave 7 times before they leave for good, if they are not murdered prior to reaching time number 7, okay? They may solicit help from others, from family, friends, clergy, or the police before resorting to violence themselves, okay? Threats to expose the abuser to others is something else, or shaming them in front of others might be something that they attempt to use prior to turning to violence, okay? And then threats to hurt the offender emotionally, economically, or to damage their property is something else that a victim may utilize prior to turning to resistive or reactive violence. They may use coping with it, placating the abuser, enduring the abuse, managing, anticipating the abuser's moods, and modifying their own behavior so as not to enrage the abuser, attempt to control situations that lead to violence, divert attention from abuse through religious or other activities. So they may become ultra involved in church. They might be in church every time the door opens because they're really avoiding home, okay? They may hide in their religious beliefs as opposed to being empowered by their religious beliefs, okay? Or resisting. They may create consequences for the abuser, such as arrest, seeking outside help, hitting back, in a preemptive strike sort of mindset, like I'm going to get you before you get me. They may take other actions or court actions to end or escape the abuse. Okay, so one key factor in determining who the primary abuser is is taking note of when each partner ends their use of violence. Both partners are abusive, right? When does each partner end their use of violence? The victim's use of violence ends when the relationship ends or when the abuser stops using abuse. The abuser will continue to abuse the victim indefinitely and usually more intensely over time. So when the victim is utilizing abuse or violence, right? When they have become violent, their goal is to stop the abuse. The abuser will continue no matter what. Okay? We've been talking about how to identify who the core aggressor is, who the predominant or primary aggressor is in a relationship that is abusive, in which both partners are abusive. It is important, beloved, that we get educated about these things so that we know what we're looking at when we're dealing with people, so that we know how to respond, okay? And so that we're not relying on myths and things that have not been established statistically to address these things. I am Apostle Cheryl Richardson. I appreciate you joining us on today. I would appreciate even greater if you would share. We appreciate our partners in Solomon Islands. We appreciate our partners in Kenya and those global partners that we have. We certainly appreciate our U.S. partners. Those of you who sow, we thank you. We're excited about what God is doing. He has expanded the vision or our grasp of understanding it and grasping it has expanded. Okay, because I'm sure it's the same vision he's had the entire time. Okay, but sometimes it takes us a little while to fully grasp. And so we're excited about where he's taken us. We are passionate about being a voice for those who are fearful of speaking up for themselves, educating, right? And arming us with knowledge so that we can war an effective strategic warfare, even in the realm of the spirit. We each have a responsibility to look out for one another. Domestic violence is epidemic. All right, it's a silent epidemic within the church across denominational lines, and this should not be. We are going to continue to cry aloud and spare not, and partner with other organizations out there who are grassroots organizations dealing with these things and bringing attention to it. Lisa Alexander is amazing with Stand Up Survivor. Valerie Simon has Against All Odds, right? It's a grassroots organization. You can find them on Facebook. We have a blog, Judah's Roar. If you subscribe to our blog, you'll get a safety plan template, which is something that everyone needs to be familiar with anyway, okay? If you're not a victim, you know someone who is. Someone around you, this is how prevalent it is. Someone around you at church or at home, in the community, at the grocery store, in the barbershop, in the beauty salon, someone is dealing with this right now. And you want to be able to advise them in a way that they can maintain their safety and regain their self-respect and their autonomy, right? And so, again, we thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week with another edition of Shatter the Silence. We appreciate if you would share. You can do a watch party. If you feel led to do so, please give, please sow, because the projects that we're undertaking cost money. They're not free. Amen. And we just believe God. We believe God to provide for the vision that he has given us. If you are currently in a domestic violence situation, you feel free to reach out to me on Facebook, in Messenger. That way nobody will know that you reached out to me. The domestic violence hotline is available. The National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, domesticshelters.org. There are many. We have a group. It's a faith-based group called Dominion Over Domestic Violence. And feel free to join us in there to get some support so we can love on you and encourage you and get you built back up. Amen. So we love you. We appreciate so much your support. And we believe, God, that if we just all pull together, we can get ahead of this thing. Okay? We are determined to get ahead of domestic violence and to break the back of this thing so that people can move forward and live the life that God intended for them to live, where they understand that they have value and that they matter. All right? Apostle Cheryl Richardson, and I'll be back with you again next week with another edition of Shatter the Silence. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Pinterest, follow us on Instagram. All right? Blessings to you.